Hi everyone, by the way, thanks for tuning in. So I obviously went to school to an all-girls secondary school in Nottingham, and I was always very sport orientated, but I was also very performing arts orientated. So I used to balance the two between school, and I actually picked in my final options to actually go down the performing arts route. So I didn't actually go down the sport route. And I did BTEC in Performing Arts, and then obviously did my standard subjects, English, Maths, Science. I did a couple of added, but that was my love and passion. So once I got my GCSEs, I went on to college, and then I decided to change my mind again, and I went for the sport route in college. So I did a BTEC national diploma in level 3 in sport, fitness, coaching, and education. And I always had the dream to go to university. I always wanted to go to university because throughout school, I always wanted to be a teacher. That was my sole aim. So that's why I went through that route, because I knew that if I wanted to teach, I had to get a degree, and then I had to, go on to then get my qualifications to teach. So I went to Leeds Beckett University, where it was actually Leeds Metropolitan when I started, and Leeds Beckett when I finished. So they had that lovely name change halfway through. And I studied sport and exercise science at university. And yeah, went on to do that, and then obviously had all the intentions of then going on to do either a PGCE or a teacher's first to then obviously get my teaching qualification. But my plans changed a little bit, which I will go on to a little bit later on. But essentially, I've had a part-time job of some description since I was about 15 years old. So I started off in the performing arts, and I used to teach at a dance and drama school, and then I went to teach on another one. So I used to do a couple of sessions a week at these dance and drama schools, just teaching, choreographing dancers, teaching drama, teaching techniques to young children and young people. And that was kind of where I started. Then I worked in a college for a while doing the enrollment process. So I was the person that scanned your form and put everything into the computer and to make sure that you was on your college course for the next whatever. And that was great for me because I just worked that in the summer, and that gave me enough money, to be able to do whatever I needed to do throughout, living my best life at college. Then I went on to do a project called National Citizen Service, NCS. So I don't know if you guys have heard of it. Some of you might have done it, because it was for age 16, 17. And I started off as a mentor on there, and then I worked myself up to be a wave leader. So I worked on managing up to 120 young people, 7 to 10 staff, and making sure that them 4 weeks ran as smoothly as possible. Then I got to university, and again, it was just, trying to find whatever I could do to make sure that, I could, pay my rent, and because you get your lovely student loan, but unfortunately it doesn't stretch as far as you think it does. You think it's all glamorous when it drops in your account and it looks like you're rich, but it soon goes very fast. You have the time around your studies, as long as it's not affecting your studies, you must try and get a job. And it's always good for your social skills as well, to get out there and to, mingle with different people and learn how to manage your time and, experience what it's like to be, tired and not want to get up in the morning and that kind of stuff. It's at the time you must think, oh, there's more to life than this, but it gets you prepared for when you're older, and, you do have to get up at times that you don't quite like, or you do have to do whatever. But the harder you work now, I feel, the nicer your life might be in the future, because then you might probably will get to do a job that you actually want to get up for in the morning. So I worked as a chef at TGI Fridays for a bit, which was, that was an experience. And then I went on to do some caring. I worked at an autistic day centre with young adults that had autism. And I also cared for a young boy who had disabilities as well. So I used to do that on the weekend, and then do the shifts around my uni and uni work. So then I came to obviously the end of university, and I still wanted to teach, but felt that I didn't want to go straight into the teaching. So I decided to take a year out, and I applied on agency to get some experience. So just to get some experience in schools working, and I actually ended up getting sent to a school which was an SEN school. So for anybody who doesn't know that, it's a special education. and it was young people that had or either currently in the system or involved with the system in terms of in the care system. So they was looked after children, and their care home was on site, and then they would come to school, and I worked in the school for there. And I was meant to go for 2 days, ended up going for a week, then I was there a month, and then I never left. I ended up working there for just over 2 years in the end, which was, you know, the greatest experience I could have ever asked for in terms of my career. And it helped me realise a lot about myself and what I wanted to do with my career. So I'll go back to the reason why I ended up not pursuing actually going into teaching. So I know this is a little bit like backwards, but I kind of want to show you what I'd done outside of the weightlifting before I went into the weightlifting. So a lot of you will know that I'm a weightlifter for Great Britain, and I will be, fingers crossed, competing at the Tokyo Olympics next year. So I started weightlifting in my final year of university. So obviously very late compared to most people who start sport to an elite level. So I was in, my final year. I was 21, and I'd done athletics since I was about 15 years old. Really enjoyed it. Competed for the university team. Just loved going to the gym, doing the training sessions, the social of it, meeting people. Really enjoyed the whole process. And then I had quite a good season in 2015, I think it was, and I decided, I was like, I really want to kind of go for it this season and see if I can do a little bit better. And I asked the S&C coach if he could help me get a little bit stronger for it, and he suggested that I should do the Olympic lifts. So I started doing the Olympic lifts to get stronger for that, and then realised that I actually loved the lifting more than I did the athletics, which is obviously really strange because I've done athletics since I was 15. I didn't think I could find the love for anything more than I did. But it turned out that me and weightlifting just got on like a house on fire. And after around 6 weeks of training, I maxed out what you needed to qualify for our British champs in this country. And they kind of sat me down and said, we think you should give this a go. And I was like, this guy has lost his mind. In this 6 weeks, there's no way on this earth I can start doing this as an actual sport. But I'm a bit mental and I like taking challenges. So I was like, why not? Let's do it. And then within 2-3 months, I was stood on a national championship stage, and I was going, what am I doing here? And I ended up winning a silver medal. And then after that, it was just a bit I kind of didn't look back from then. I just realised that the main point for me with weightlifting was I enjoyed it. I loved it. I loved every part of going to training. I loved every part of the challenge. Weightlifting, some days you can go in and you look like you're a professional, and some days you look like you've never done it in your life. And I really enjoyed that challenge. That not every day it went right, and I wanted to come back every single week, every day, and just get it better. And no, today I'm going to get it right, and no, today I'm going to do this. And I loved the challenge of that. So essentially, I still had my plans to go on to do my teaching and whatever, but then they kind of sat me down and said, we think you can make a Commonwealth Games. And I was like, right, guys, this is getting wild. You wanted me to compete, now you're talking about Commonwealth Games. And obviously, as a kid, I've always watched Commonwealth Games on the telly, and it's one of the pinnacles of an athlete's career to be able to go to a Commonwealth Games. And I was like, are you guys serious? And they was like, if you put the hard work in, we believe you could go. So I was like, right, okay. So I kind of had to speak to my parents, and I was like, these are thinking I'm going to Commonwealth Games. What do you reckon? And they kind of said to me, listen, give it everything. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. You can still go on and do teaching. You can still do whatever you need to do. But, if you have got a chance, you might as well give it a go. So I did. They gave me one competition to qualify. I went out to Australia for my first ever international, and they said to me, you either qualify today or you don't. And I was like, brilliant, let's do it. So yeah, and I did what I needed to do. I qualified for the games and then went to the games. So then obviously by this point, when you go to a Commonwealth Games, things obviously get that little bit more serious. But I'm not a funded athlete. So even now at the level I am going to the Tokyo Olympics, our sport is not funded. So I, throughout all of this transition, still had to work in some capacity to obviously keep myself afloat while I was training. So I was training like a full-time athlete, but then also working at the same time. So in the start of the build-up towards the Commonwealth Games, I worked full-time. So I worked probably about 37 hours a week, and then was training another, 16 hours a week on top. It did get a lot. I mean, I did it and I managed it, but then it did get a lot. And then I was at the school that I went for 2 days and never left. And I had a conversation with them and I explained the situation, and they put me down to a part-time position. So then I went to doing 20 hours a week my training, which was a lot more manageable. It worked around my training. I did 2.5 days and then obviously trained when I needed to and whatnot. It was still tough, don't get me wrong, but it was manageable and it was enjoyable. And it was nice for me to be able to go to work and kind of forget about the weightlifting, and then go to weightlifting and forget about work. Because the bottom line is, with everything in life, things are going to be tough, but you need to have to look after your mental health. And I think that's really important, that, you know, you have other things in your life. Even if you work a good job that you enjoy, at some point it's going to get a little bit stressful. So, you know, to be able to come home and know that you've got something else that you can, you know, wind down and relax with and have that time to, you know, switch off is really healthy. So, you know, having all of that as well was really good for me. So I continued to work at the school all the way up until the Commonwealth Games. And then after I came back from the Commonwealth Games, I worked until the end of term. And then they had the conversation and sat me down and said, we think you can go to the Olympics. And I was like, whoa, this is getting wild. I came back with I feel like when you do things like that, I mean, the Commonwealth Games was incredible, like fantastic. And the fact that I won a medal was in my absolute wildest dreams. You know, I wasn't tipped to get a medal. I wasn't one of the favourites. I just went out there and I just gave it my everything on the day, and I got rewarded for it, which, you know, I can be blessed for. But when you do surround yourself in an environment like that, and you surround yourself with them kind of people, it does give you the drive and determination to want more. And I came back wanting to go to the Olympics. Like, I didn't just want, because somebody said to me, you can go. I actually came back and was like, I believed I could go. I believed I wanted it. And I think that's another good point in your life, that make sure you surround yourself with people that build you and lift you up, and, you know, keep you grounded as well. Like, you know, keep you the realities of life and are good for you and good for what you want to achieve, because energy is everything. I'm a massive believer in the energy that you have around you, and the energy that you keep is you know, 100% everything. So so then I came back, and the nature of my job was sometimes I would have to restrain young people, which was not nice. Sometimes I would have to be in difficult situations with them, have to be in, you know, it was a hard job that I absolutely loved with all my heart. But in terms of me to make an Olympic Games, which is obviously another step up from a Commonwealth Games, there was no way I could continue working there and trying to train full time. So then I got a job working in a physio clinic. So I worked on reception. I worked 16.5 hours a week. It was very chill. And again, this job for me wasn't challenging, and that annoyed me sometimes, if that makes sense. That it didn't, because it was very simple, it was very reception work and whatever. But then I had to remember that the reason why I'm doing this is because I need to fulfill my dream of being at the Olympics. So sometimes in life, you have to do things that you don't necessarily want to do, and you don't necessarily think is, you know, amazing, but you have to think of your final goal and the outcome and what you want to get from that. And is that leading you to that path? And if it is, then it's an important part of the journey. Because without that job, I wouldn't have enough money to train. I wouldn't have enough money to provide for myself, to feed myself, to be strong enough to do what I needed to do. So I had to continue with that job. So yeah, I currently worked with that up until the pandemic, and obviously, you know, I can imagine you've probably got some questions for me about that and whatnot, which I'm obviously willing to answer, because it's been a very uncertain time for everybody, and you know, things have been hard. But the bottom line is, I always believe there is light at the end of every tunnel. It might take you a long time to get there, and it might seem like it's not, but there is. And with any situation, you've got to find the resilience to be able to get through that. I learned a lot of time management. Like, I will hands up put I am one of the most unorganized people ever. And even so, when I was like back at uni and stuff, because you're just cruising through life, and you're like, oh, I'll get that done when it needs to get done and stuff and whatever. But then, you know, yeah, when I was working 20 hours a week and training 16 hours a week, and then, you know, you're getting pressure from all sides, because I'm a person that likes to give all in everything. So, you know, I wanted to go every day to my job and make sure I'm giving them kids everything I've got, but then I need to go to training and give everything I've got. So it was just little things like, you know, the silly things that your mum tells you to do, to pack your bag the night before you go to a college or before you go to school or whatever. And it was things like that, having to do my meal prep to make sure meals were made and lunches were made and whatnot. And I learned a lot about myself in the fact that sometimes I'd have to have little conversations with myself, and I'm like, right, you need to do a little bit better here. You could have avoided this situation today if you had of. And I think I had a lot of them kind of conversations with myself and saying, right, next time you need to make sure you do X, Y, and Z. Even little things like writing things in my phone, putting things in my diary, just small things like that you think always is rocket science, but we don't always do it because we don't always feel the need to do it. And I feel like more as I got busier, I had to make sure that I was a lot more organized with that. And I learned that I'm actually quite resilient, like that, 9 times out of 10, if you don't get yourself too stressed about everything and you kind of take things as it comes, and every time you get a situation, you deal with it head on and you sort it out and you move on from it, that you'll be amazed what you can actually have thrown at you. Like as a person, you can have things thrown at you and you can deal with them, and you can be like, oh, you know what? That was real tough and I was real dreading that, but I got through it and I did it and I smashed it. And you'd be surprised with yourself. Sometimes self-belief is a massive thing that you need. Like, it's all right having everybody around you telling you you're this and that and this and that, but you need to sit there, you need to believe in yourself, you need to go, right, this is what I would like to do, this is what I know I need to do to get there, and I can do it. And even when there's times where it's tough, you just need to go, no, it's all right, it's part of the road, no road is one straight line, no road is, smooth, I can do this, and I can get up and do it again. And I think that's what I learned a lot of the times, because I was going into a lot of new territory. And I think sometimes when you go into new territory, you can either hit it head on or you can go in a little bit weary. And I would advise people to just hit it head on, because every time you make a mistake, there's a lesson learned. So don't be afraid to make mistakes. Like, no one can judge you for making mistakes. If you make the same mistake over and over again, then yeah, you've probably got to think about what you're doing. But there's a lesson to be learned from it, and that can only help you grow as a person. So yeah, I feel like you learn a lot about yourself as an individual, and you learn a lot about the skills that you think you might not have had or you've managed to develop through, times. And 9 times out of 10, they always say your hardest times are the ones where you learn and grow the most. So, don't be afraid to mess it up, because you can always fix it. It's true, we are living in a life now where we are, almost controlled by social media, which it's quite sad in a way. But social media can be used for very positive things as well as negative things. So I always think, remember when you're scrolling through Instagram and you're looking, that people only show you the best parts of their life. People show you what they want you to see, not what's really going on. So don't get hung up on what everybody's posting and what everyone's putting, because it's not always a reality. People can post that, they're having an amazing time and this and whatever, but really they're actually sat in their room really lonely. And that's quite sad. So don't get caught up in what's going on social media, but then, make sure that you are following pages that are bringing positivity, that are bringing things that you can learn from, that are making you feel better. Like, you don't want to be opening your phone to then, by the time you scroll through Instagram for 5 minutes, then you feel worse about yourself. You want to make sure you're following the right pages that are giving you positive quotes, that are giving you, uplifting feelings, that, videos of cats doing silly things. Do you know what I mean? People think it's silly, but if it makes you laugh and it brings your spirits up, then that's done something good for the day. Like, dog videos. Everyone loves watching like good dog, silly dog videos and stuff like that. So, if that's the pages that you want to follow, but then don't feel the pressure to feel like you have to match up to everybody on social media, because also everybody's journey is different. Like, if you look at what I've achieved, you would think I would have started it from when I was really young, but I didn't. I started it later on in my life, and everybody's journey is different. Like, you're all going to buy houses at a different time. You're all going to meet your partners at a different time. You're all going to, find your dream job at a different time. everything is going to be different for everybody. And that doesn't mean that anybody did anything better than you or worse than you. It's just that everybody's journey is really individual. And that's what I mean about being resilient with life, that life is going to throw all sorts at you. Throughout your time, you're going to get bombarded with, you know, things that not necessarily negative, because sometimes you could get filled with something that's positive, but then also all of a sudden it comes with a lot of responsibility. So don't feel like you have to, and at the end of the day as well, I always think with social media, like you can make it what you want it. So yes, you know, I understand that in this day and age it's important to have it. Like for me as an athlete, I have to have it. It's the only way that I can, you know, share my content. It's the only way that I can get sponsorship deals. I can get, you know, all them kind of things. I personally don't really like Instagram and whatnot, and it doesn't do much for me as a person. Like it doesn't really, apart from communicating with people, I'm not really bothered about it. But I have to have it as an athlete, else I will, you know, if I want to make any more or whatever. But then I've realised that because I have to have it, let's make a positive out of it and let me try and inspire people. So let me use it for some good, even though I don't necessarily like to use it, I don't want to be on it. I have to have it, so let's make a good situation out of it. And I think that's what you have to do with life sometimes. That, yeah, you know what, I didn't want to be here, I didn't want to be this, but what good can I do out of this? Because there's always something positive that you can turn out of it. Like I'm a very optimistic person, and I think I wind people up sometimes because I see the good in everything. But then I believe that you can find the good in everything. That yeah, there's some crap situations, and sometimes, you know, you just need to cry, or you just need to get it out, or you just need to feel like, and if that makes you feel better, then that's fine, and that's how you need to deal with it. And you can't feel pressures from other people on how to deal with things in your life, because everybody's so individual. So I just think, don't get too caught up on the social media. Like, see the good side in it. See how you feel like you can do better for your personal self, and, you know, watch really silly videos on there, because some of them are quite funny. Yeah, there's been times where, I'm not gonna lie, I've sat there and I thought, I can't do this anymore. Like, this is all a lot. Like, this is all a bit too much. Like, you know, when training's so hard and you're like, your central nervous system is shot, your muscles are hurting so much you can barely walk. Like, you're mentally and physically drained, and you just think, this is enough. But I always think with everybody, when you're, you know, if you're working late shifts at night to earn you money to be able to put towards something that you've wanted or whatever, I always think about the end goal. Think about what you want to achieve. And every time it gets tough, and every time you get set on a different path, you just need to restructure, rethink, and think, right, how do I get myself back on track to get to that end goal? Because the bottom line is, there's going to be no better feeling than when you get to that end goal. And if you give up at that time, you're never going to feel what it's like to achieve what you wanted to achieve if you give up. And again, there's like, I know there's like a diagram, isn't there? Like a picture, I think, that's, you know, shows you route to success, and people think it's like that, and it's that wiggly one that goes back, forwards, up, down. And it's true, it really is like that. And sometimes as well, you need space and time. So sometimes when things get a little bit too much, or you've had a setback and you're really frustrated and you're really angry, and again, them emotions are normal to have. So if you've worked really hard for something, and then say you've worked really hard for a date to do something, and then it gets postponed, and somebody's like, oh, we'll just do it again, and we'll just do it in another couple of weeks or something, but you was ready to do it right then. You'd worked really hard, you got to that point, you was ready to do it right then sometimes it's just about getting those emotions out in the best way possible, and then sitting and regrouping, and then thinking, right, okay, this has happened now. I'm angry about it. I've had my anger. I'm annoyed. But now, what do I need to do to get back to where my final goal was? And it's hard with setbacks, because everybody reacts in different ways and everybody thinks in different ways. But I find that just, you know, keeping your eyes on the prize, literally, sometimes is the best thing that you can do. Because, again, if you never get there, you're never going to know what it feels like to achieve what you did. So sometimes yeah, it might take a little bit longer and it might be frustrating and you might say a lot of words that you might not want to, but you know, if you get there in the end, then it's going to be all worth it. When I am deep in full-time training and we're in competition mode, I don't get much social time or whatever to, you know, see people and whatnot. And, you know, I have to thank the friends I have around me, because I have friends that aren't in sport and that we are very good friends and, you know, are extremely understanding of like my situation, that, you know, they can't just, you know, call me on a night and say, come out, do you know what I mean? And let's go do this and let's go do that, because, you know, I have to think about little things of like, you know, what time I go to bed at night and to make sure I'm getting enough rest, because if I don't go to sleep at the right time and then I'm tired for training, that's going to have a knock-on effect on my training, which then, you know, has a downward spiral. So, but then find time to have fun and to let our hair down, because I do feel like, you know, you have to, even as an athlete, like we do, I work for my friend's company doing programming and stuff, and we do online workshops, and then we do, you know, in-face person workshops, and we get a lot of questions about that, and we always say that, you know, looking after your mental health and what you're doing is important. And we get people that, you know, just enjoy weightlifting and do it a couple of times a week, and they're asking us how they count their food and their macros and what they should be doing, and we're like, you just chill out a little bit. Like, think about what you're doing that for. Like, you're doing weightlifting because you love it. Yes, you want to eat well and you want to eat good, but like, you shouldn't be like having to count your food and do this and you know, if you want a piece of cake at the weekend, like, have a piece of cake. Like, you've earned it. Like, you've worked hard in it. Set yourself good structures, especially with your work and stuff. So when I was obviously training and I was working and I was doing university, that I would have to set out scheduled times to work, but then I would set out scheduled times to chill out as well. So I would say, right, on Saturday night after 8 o'clock, I'm not doing anything, and I'm going out and I'm going out with my friends and I'm doing whatnot, or I'm sitting and I'm chilling and I'm watching a movie and whatnot. So yes, you have to schedule your work and make sure that's done, but you also have to schedule your time as well, because it's just as important. Because if you're not letting off steam, or you're not, you know, relaxing and giving yourself that time to enjoy yourself, then when you do come to the hard work, it's going to be even harder. Because once you've had a chill and you've gone out with your mates and, you know, you've gone out, I mean, back in the day when you used to actually be able to go out and stuff, you know, you come back to your work and you go, well, I've had a nice weekend and I've chilled out and whatever. Now I need to get down to my hard work and I need to get it done. And you feel that balance and purpose. When I feel like balance is everything. Like, you have to have the balance. And yes, you know, the saying, work hard to play harder. And it is a very truthful saying, that, you know, you've got to make sure you get that work done, but then you've also got to make sure that you chill out as well. So yeah, I think don't feel guilty for having that time to just be you, and just, you know, a time away from that work, or time away from that goal, or time away from whatever you're doing. You know, we, like, especially as athletes, I mean, we've enjoyed this pandemic a little bit, because the chill's been off us a little bit. We haven't had competitions and we haven't had to train as hard. So it has been nice to go out and socialise with people. And obviously when we was allowed to go out and do whatnot, and or just be able to stay up a little bit later or whatever or whatnot. So I believe that, yeah, your mental health is just as important as everything else. So make sure that you look after it, and you know, and if you're struggling as well, you know, make sure that you talk to people. Like, there's people out there that you can talk to and that you can say, you know what, like, and if you've got real good true friends around you, you can just say to them, you know, listen, can I just talk to you about something? And sometimes you just letting that out and letting that off your chest and off your shoulders can make you feel a world better. So don't think that it's a sign of weakness that you have to admit that you're struggling, because there's always someone out there to help you, or some ways to make things better and help you manage time. So, you know, if you need it, make sure you talk. I think the biggest one is the misconception that they think that all athletes live a really nice, glamorous lifestyle. I would love to say I am, but, you know, I still live at my parents' house. And the only reason why I do that is because I'm obviously non-funded, and everything I earn goes straight back into my weightlifting again. So, you know, I'm not in a position to be able to, you know, buy a property or rent somewhere or whatever. So, you know, these guys are helping me out because they know that that's my dream, and, you know, they would never not see me, you know, achieve my dream. And again, you know, obviously you see athletes on television and doing adverts and stuff and whatever, but they, you know, very few and far between, and there's not much, you know, support and that out there for athletes. It depends. Again, it depends on what sport you're from, and obviously the problem is I do weightlifting, which is a low minority sport in England or in the UK. If I did maybe athletics or football or whatever, I would be in a different situation. And I'm not mad about that. You know what I mean? That's the way that life is, and that was something that I knew when I wanted to commit to this weightlifting, that, you know, I didn't do it to get rich. I did it because I loved it, and that I felt like it was my calling. So again, sometimes, yes, money is important, and, you know, you need money to, you know, keep your life afloat. But then sometimes if you have a dream or an aspiration that you know that you want to achieve and it ain't going to pay you that much, you have to weigh up and go, you know, am I willing to commit to this? I know I'm not going to get paid a lot, but it's my dream. It's everything I've wanted to do. And, you know, you have to do things for yourself sometimes instead of thinking about, you know, everything else that comes with it. And yeah, I think that, again, there's misconceptions as well that, you know, all athletes, like, literally they don't go out, they don't eat cake. It's really funny. I go to schools and I do talks, and I always ask the young kids, do I get to eat cake? And they're like, no, you can't eat cake. But, you know, at their age, they think that that's like you are like breaking all sorts of rules if you eat cake as an athlete. Like, yes, we have to eat well and we have to eat healthy, but at the same time, we have to eat food to be able to get strong and to be able to, you know, capacitate the amount of training that we do. We just have to eat. Like, we have to eat good food, and we have to eat. And in my case, I'm super heavyweight, so I weigh around 120 kilos, which is probably around 18, 19 stone. But then I compete against girls who are 150 kilos. So, you know, in comparison to what I weigh, I'm quite light compared to some of the girls I compete on the world circuit. So I'm not naturally this body weight. And I realized how hard it was going to be when I came into this sport, having to eat enough to be able to keep my body weight at what it is. So that taught me a lesson on, when you think you can eat, then try and compete at super heavyweight level, and then you'll realize that your eating is really not up to par, because I got humbled big time because I thought I ate a lot, and then when I actually started eating the amount I did to be able to keep my body weight at it is, I was really shocked. So yeah, I think there's a lot of obviously preconceptions and whatnot of being an athlete, but you ultimately, when you do anything in life, you have to realize, is this what I want from life? Is this what I want to do? And if that's what you want to do, throw your wholehearted into it and go for it and do it, because there might be some days where you feel like it doesn't pay off, but it will pay off in the end. So, you know, if you want to do it and that's what you believe is your calling, then go for it. My ultimate is Serena Williams. Always will be. I just think she's just, you know, people like to say that she's an incredible female athlete, but she's one of the best athletes in the world, period, gender or no gender. And the amount of setbacks, controversies, and again, you know, we're talking about Black History Month, you know, the things that she went through as a Black athlete, you know, in a sport that, you know, was very white dominated, and, you know, the things that she faced, and she just kept coming back and just proving everybody wrong. She didn't behave in a way that, you know, she didn't need to. She just let the tennis talk every single time. And no matter what she faced, she just came out and played harder and played better. Then she went off and had a baby and came back and, you know, won a Grand Slam, as you do. But yeah, she's just absolute inspiration for me. And I think she's, you know, a massive, massive role model for sport in general, not just females. And also one of my favourites on the circuit right now is Dina Asher-Smith. Me and Dina are quite good friends, actually, and you know, I just admire the way she is, because she is one of the most humble people you will ever meet in your life. She just absolutely loves what she's doing, but she has this, it's quite beautiful, actually. She has this like deep-rooted confidence in herself that can never ever be, you know, shown as arrogance, and I think that's the reason she's as good as she is. Like, she wholeheartedly believes in her ability, and she knows if she trains hard and she does what she's told, she will achieve what she wants to achieve. But then, you know, you meet her off the track, and she's just so humbling, and she's so welcoming, and she wants to know about other people, and she doesn't see herself as superior to everybody else, even though everybody like obviously sees her as a massive superstar. So I think she's just, you know, obviously massive inspiration. And in terms of meeting stars and stuff, I mean, I've been to Sport Personality of the Year a couple of times, and obviously you see quite a few big stars there. Some of the boys might shout at me, but I was in the queue talking to this guy once someone was getting let in, and he played for Leicester City, and I didn't even have a clue. We had a right little chin wagging in the queue, and then someone said to me, "You know, them boys play for Leicester City." I was like, "No, I didn't, not at all." The one person I do remember that sticks out was Tyson Fury, just because he's an absolute mountain of a man. I'm nearly 6 foot, and I was like this, looking at him, and he just has a bit of a presence when he walks in a room. Like everybody knows he's here, and yeah, it was a bit like, oh my gosh, that's Tyson Fury. But yeah, I don't know. I try in a way to sometimes not get too struck around athletes, because I always think if I want to be of the highest level, then I can't get too starstruck about certain athletes. Do you know what I mean? That, you know, I see certain athletes and I think, well, you know, if I carry on like I will achieve as much as them as well. So I try not to be too starstruck.